that vulnerable?
In Atlanta, a wave is building. The kind of wave that comes once a generation. When people have been pushed too far and they decide all at once, all together, that enough is enough. So let's give them a united Georgia. Let's save the country again. Let's make sure they hear it all the way down at Mar-a-Lago that Georgia will bow to no king. Thank you. God bless you. Let's get to work.
And joining me now is Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff of Georgia. I just gave an overview of the path to the Senate majority. It certainly goes through Georgia. They are going to throw everything up against you, bazillions of dollars, attack ads, everything that you can imagine and you're already prepared for. I've also heard you say a wave is building that only comes along once in a generation. So tell us why you feel that way.
Jen, thank you for having me. Great to be back. And a wave is building because this administration, through its corruption and incompetence, is driving prices to record highs, while the first family enriches itself to the tune of billions of dollars. The nation has been plunged into reckless war. The disastrous tariffs are crushing small businesses and farmers. And people see that this administration's abuses of power require us to restore checks and balances. But I need to give everybody out there a reality check about this Senate race in Georgia. Please hear me when I say this, folks. There is no way to regain the Senate majority without winning this Senate race in Georgia. I am the only Democratic senator running for re-election in a state that Donald Trump won. I expect the National Republican Party will spend hundreds of millions of dollars to try to unseat me, and Georgia is a very, very tough battleground state. So I'm asking folks to log on to electjon.com, electjon.com, and chip in right now to support my campaign so we can build an absolutely unprecedented turnout effort and protect voting rights where right there in Fulton County, you saw Tulsi Gabbard come down and oversee a ballot raid. This White House has its sights set on Georgia, and I need the help to win.
I don't want to minimize any race, certainly not Georgia. And I think no race is won until November, which everybody should know out there. There's a lot left to happen. You've made corruption. I just played a clip of you. You've made it. We've talked about it a number of times, too. Such a focus on the campaign trail. You weave in the impact on people's lives and why it matters so much. One area of potential corruption we've seen the Trump administration kind of back off on, sort of, kind of, I want to know what you think, is the $1.8 billion slush fund. We obviously saw a huge amount of pushback from Democrats, a lot of unease from Republicans for good reason. And we saw very quick action in the courts. Today, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said they're no longer pursuing it. What do you make of that? And do you believe him?
I don't trust Todd Blanche, and Todd Blanche should resign. This entire thing is a disgrace. What's extraordinary about how this relates to the Senate race in Georgia is that you've heard even some Senate Republicans criticize this and say they won't vote for it. But both of my Trump puppet opponents in their debate last weekend enthusiastically endorsed this and said that they would support this $1.8 billion slush fund for Jan 6th foot soldiers and the president's cronies. People need to understand it's not just that the Senate race in Georgia is the most competitive and crucial in the country. I'm running against two Trump puppet MAGA fanatics who are pro-war, pro-tariff, pro-cutting your health care, pro-Jeffrey Epstein Memorial Ballroom, pro-slush fund for Jan 6th insurrectionists. And again, you want to help me? It's electjon.com.
One of the reasons it really matters who is in the Senate and who controls the Senate is who is confirmed as nominees and people in the cabinet. And Trump did something, I mean, we should never be really shocked. But today he put forward Bill Pulte, of the head of the FHFA, as the acting director of national intelligence. He obviously has no experience in national security. His only, I guess, qualification in Trump world is that he has just been looking for dirt on Trump's political opponents. You're a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. You care about who's in the cabinet. How concerned are you about this?
Look, of all of the appointments, literally, Jen, of all of the appointments to date, many of them catastrophic, this one is the most disturbing. And we cannot let the fact that Bill Pulte is not a household name prevent us from informing the public about the danger posed by his appointment as Director of National Intelligence. This guy has no background in intelligence. He is a thug and a hack who abused his power at the top of the Federal Housing Finance Authority to dig through federal records improperly for any information he could find about the president's political adversaries, and then try to get them prosecuted by Pam Bondi's corrupt Department of Justice. Having somebody like that at the head of the intelligence community is a recipe for unprecedented abuses of the vast powers of our intelligence apparatus. And, you know, I saw Senator Thune even today said we don't need a weaponized intelligence community. Everybody needs to be getting Republican senators on record in opposition to this dangerous, disastrous appointment. This is going to require some of the most intense Senate oversight in Senate history if we have a political hack like this atop of the intelligence community. And again, you saw Tulsi Gabbard. She came down to Georgia, the nation's spy chief, and oversaw a ballot raid as the top intelligence officer in the United States. It is deeply disturbing that with the election upcoming, they've put Bill Pulte, a political hack, at the head of the intelligence community. It speaks to the intensity with which we're going to have to defend voting rights. And again, folks can help me defend voting rights at electjohn.com.
To your point of just the forces against Democrats and what they're up against in Georgia and other states across the country, there has been this effort, of course, to redraw maps and continue to redraw maps. There is a piece of good news tonight, I would note, you may or may not have already seen. Oh, it's bad news. I'm sorry. We just got the news. Apologies. We just got a ruling from the Supreme Court in just the last few minutes. A 6-3 decision was just going to let Alabama's new congressional map stand. This is definitely bad news. Sorry, this news just broke. It means Alabama is going to lose one of its 2 majority black districts. It's a reminder of the forces, of course, as I said, working against Democrats. What's your message? I think people can hear these things and they feel defeated. They feel deflated. They feel like the forces are against them. What is your message to voters as they head out to November who are outraged and feel depressed by this sort of ruling?
Jen, in Georgia, these attacks on voting rights are provoking a defiant backlash. They are motivating people to turn out to the polls in defiance of these attacks on the franchise. 61 years after President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act, as if they'd been lying in wait since the ink from his pen dried. As soon as Section 2 of the VRA was eviscerated, they've leapt into action to try to remove black elected officials, not by defeating them at the polls, but by manipulating maps
to vote, and with which all voters, elections officials, and candidates alike are familiar. Down the other lies a chaotic election, held under a never-before-used congressional map that intentionally discriminates against black Alabamians, that Alabama adopted in unashamed defiance of a prior court order directly affirmed by this court, and that will require officials, listen to this, will require officials to change the voter registrations of hundreds of thousands of voters in just days at best, a task that Alabama previously represented would take months. The majority chooses the second path and disregards both democratic values and the rule of law. I respectfully dissent. Again, that news out of the Supreme Court just within the last hour. This is an election special, and we have so much election news to cover tonight.
All right, that's why we're
But
here.
I'm just going to call an audible here. Can we just talk about this for a second? I just love to get your guys' reaction to some of this news tonight, Chris.
I'm going to swing at one of these 2 pitches, which is the Supreme Court decision, which I've really had a few moments today of being kind of brought up short and speechless. And I'm trying to describe, I mean, one of the things with all these cases is the procedural ins and outs can get very complicated. It's like this map, and then it got stopped in the lower court. But I think the best way to understand it is this is so cynical and depraved and insane. It's the court's equivalent of nominating Bill Pulte to run the intelligence apparatus, in that when you do that, you're not pretending anymore. When you say Bill Pulte is going to run the intelligence agencies in the U.S., you're like, you've lost. You're no longer trying to be like, well, no, this is a bald-faced attempt to manipulate the levels of power for corrupt ends. And what the court has done tonight, and again, I could spend a long time going through the procedural stances of this, but fundamentally what happened was this map, this court rejected in 2023. They said this is not permissible.
And why was it not permissible?
Because it intentionally discriminates against black voters. Mm-hmm. And then they overturned their previous jurisprudence in the Calais with Louisiana's map, but they said, they made a point of saying in the majority, we are not overturning our decision in Milligan, which is the Alabama case. That still stands. Mm-hmm. And then tonight, after a lower court said, whatever the Voting Rights Act says, this is unconstitutional. It is constitutionally impermissible to discriminate against black people in this country, these United States, with our Constitution. And the court said, no, actually, you can. Yeah. And it's a truly shocking. And the response from lawyers, again, you keep hitting new.
You know, when you look at this latest gerrymandering fight, it's easy to focus on the maps themselves, the districts, the court rulings, the political maneuvering. But I think there's something bigger happening underneath all of it. I do. What Republicans may see as a short-term advantage, a way to protect power, a way to tilt the playing field, a lot of voters see as proof that the system is being manipulated. And look, that matters. Because frustration has a way of turning into participation. That's part of why figures like Jon Ossoff seem so energized right now. It's not just about one election cycle. It's about a growing belief that democracy itself is under pressure. And when voters start feeling that pressure personally, when they believe their voice is being diluted or ignored, they're not likely to sit quietly. I think back to the 2022 Dobbs midterms. Millions of Americans felt something fundamental had been taken away from them, and the response was immediate. The turnout was real, the energy was real, the anger was real. And what we're seeing now feels similar, maybe even stronger. Because here's the thing. Democratic voters are not always driven by outrage the way Trump's movement was during the 2015 primary. That campaign thrived on grievance. It fed on grievance. But when Democratic voters get angry, it's usually because they believe something important is at stake. And when that happens, it's powerful. So every new attempt to rig the system, every new effort to draw unfair maps, every reminder that politicians are choosing voters instead of voters choosing politicians, it creates backlash. And I think we're only beginning to see that backlash take shape. And that's why Trump is losing November.